Okay, now we're going to take a look at adding individual plants and editing individual plants for our view scenes. If we go over here to where this little tree is on our object toolbar, we will see that we can either load in a plant species or just a plant. If we left mouse click, it'll just load in a random plant. And we'll also grow this. You can see it's coming up. And that depends on the last plant you have selected. So if you, in this case, had the summer cherry tree selected before, that is what will load up automatically. What we can also do is right mouse click to load up the library and actually choose and look and see what plants we want or which species we would like to base our plant off of. We also have some edited plants, which all of these were edited from our regular plants that we have available. But I'm going to go ahead and select Summer Cherry Tree and just click OK. Okay, because we see it's loaded in the scene. I'm going to go ahead and just zoom out just a little. And now if we want to actually edit this tree to however we specifically want it to look, I'm just going to move our camera around so we can see a little bit of the color on the other side. So we have some light. But I'm going to double click on our tree, which is going to pull up our plant editor. Which we can see a nice preview in the center. And if we right mouse click, we can rotate around this viewport. And you will see that we have all these different options for editing our plant. On the left, we have our trunk and branches. So what we can do is actually lengthen our tree if we want to, the trunks and its branches, the fall off for our trunk, so we can make it really high or really low. How much we want this plant gnarled, of course the diameter of the actual trunk. And if you can see, we have all these little blocks in here, and it doesn't exactly look very realistic, but once you're out of the plant editor and you render this, you will not see all those little blobs in there. It'll look much better. What we can also do is adjust our droop. I'm going to go ahead and bring our trunk down just a little. And in this case, it's splitting it down the center. It's kind of neat. And then we can also adjust our angle of our tree and our limbs. So we can have them go up, we can have them go down, just all the different options for that. We can also adjust the scale of our texture because automatically we have this cherry trunk texture loaded in, but of course we can load in whatever we want, and then of course adjust the scale on that. If we come over to the right, we'll see that we can edit our leaves, which means we can edit the length of our leaves, the width, the randomness, the flexibility of our leaves, and of course their curl. And then you can even adjust the overall color. Right now it's set to a green, but we could adjust this to a red, and we can change it to what other color leaves we want. What we can also do is go in and edit our material by clicking on this new leaf petal map. And we can take a look at what our tree is being made up of. And right now, it's created from a color picture and an alpha picture that are creating all of our leaves and branches. So what we can actually do is customize our own images and use these species of trees to make our own trees where we can customize our own leaves. You could go out and scan some leaves into the computer, maybe draw some branches in Photoshop, or render some in. You could do a lot of different things with it and actually customize your own trees. Now let's say we have this cherry tree that we want to stick with, but we're not very particular about this certain cherry tree. What we can actually do is load in the same species of plant, but a different variation of it. So let's go up to the top and select New Plant. And what it's going to do is actually load in another summer cherry tree, but it's a little bit different. And we can see how these settings are changed a little. And our other settings that we had before for our trunk and our leaf settings, those still apply to that new plant we create. So I'm going to go ahead and add another one, which is a little bit different. And we can see now we have an entirely different type of tree, our summer cherry tree. It's still a cherry tree, but it's a little bit different. So we can edit all of these different options. And also on the top, what we have is our undo and redo if we want. We can also save this plant. We can load in another plant. And we can also adjust its response to wind. So if we click on that, we can adjust the overall sensitivity of the trunk and branches to the wind and the sensitivity of leaves to the breeze. And these are both set to 1 by default right now. Another thing we can also do is if we want to increase the quality of our plant, we can multiply it by 2, which will double the polygon count. So if you're using a slower system, I wouldn't recommend doing that. Typically, the default settings for our trees are much better, and if you have to, you can even go down a little bit further to more of a lower quality tree. We also have the ability to export this plant if we want to. And we have a lot of different 3D formats we can choose from. We can do a 3ds file, a Cinema 4D file, TrueSpace, AutoCAD, Lightwave, and a wavefront object file. So there's lots of, we can generate our color maps for it, bump maps, alpha. So this way, we can send these plants to other 3D programs. We can also adjust the resolution of these trees, and we could have it a little bit higher, and it'll give us an estimated file size, number of polygons, and of course number of vertices, which you always want to pay attention to because you do not want them to be too high, especially because some other programs cannot support the high level of polygon counts that Vue can, because Vue is using instances mostly, which is the representation of an object and not the actual object. Although we do have settings where we can see the actual objects within Vue, and it does still process polygons a lot better than most other programs. And now we have a tree the way we want it. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And we can see with our different materials, we can have 2 materials on this plant, and we can scrub through both of them. We have both the plant, or the actual leaves, and then of course the trunk. And we can double click on these to actually access these within the material editor, so we can be more specific about exactly how we want this plant to look. And it's a little bit easier to actually work in the advanced material editor, or even in the basic material editor, than it can be working in the editor for the actual plant. So there's a lot we can do with the current trees that are actually in Vue, and you can actually go in, like I said, and customize your own for your own specific needs. And the plant editor is a very powerful tool for doing so.